Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to quickly recap the main timeline of events in this worsening diplomatic situation between the UK and Iran and look at what, if anything, the UK could have done differently. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. So if we quickly have a look at the situation in this increasingly difficult diplomatic situation with Iran, let's make no bones about this. What began this whole sorry affair was Donald Trump pulling out of the nuclear deal for political purposes, with the collateral damage being to stir up the hornet's nest of Middle East tensions. But the UK has been the one taking all the headlines in terms of ramping up those tensions. Yes, the US has been shooting down Iranian drones, but the UK has captured an Iranian oil tanker. Now, people have been asking if this was a smart move by the UK, given that the response was obvious. That response was for Iran to, first of all, threaten to do the same to us. They tried it whilst our frigate, the HMS Montrose, was nearby, who then chased off the Revolutionary Guards. But of course, it can't be everywhere, and Iran has succeeded in capturing 2 British-flagged oil tankers since. One was released, but they made a real meal out of the second one. HMS Montrose on that occasion was too far away to do anything about it other than shout threats over the radio. That obviously did nothing. And the tanker wasn't even in Iranian waters, it was in Omani waters. This fact alone tells us that it's not only hawks in Donald Trump's administration spoiling for a war, there are clearly influential people in Iran who want it as well. So, do I blame the UK for seizing the Iranian tanker in Gibraltar? No, but I do think they didn't handle it very well at all. At the end of the day, it was reported as taking oil to Syria. That is a breach of EU sanctions. As an EU member, still, we have a duty to uphold the law. What muddies the water somewhat is that it was the US that tipped us off about the tanker. Now, in those circumstances, it's quite easy to maybe see it as a setup, just as the alleged attack on the Japanese tanker looks increasingly like it was as well. But the independent evidence is credible. The Iranian tanker was taking a long, baffling route that meant avoiding ports where they'd be facing the most scrutiny. In essence, it was acting suspiciously. But was it doing it because it wanted to take oil to Syria? That's plausible. They're certainly allies with Syria, and something that the UK can't allow to happen when it's in its own territory, as much of a diplomatic mess as it would cause. Or did Iran deliberately do that in order to invite the capture of it and escalate tensions with a nation that is known for cocking these things up in recent times? Because although the US president is responsible for creating the spark that started all this, let's not pretend that Iran are not hawkish themselves and are perfectly happy to fan the flames and toss some more fuel on the fire while they're at it. There's a reason the Middle East is so messed up, frankly, and it's because its natural resources are so important to everyone that it makes the stakes sky high, and it means that the major players will take the most extraordinary risks and commit the most extraordinary actions to stay in the game. But where I think the UK did go wrong, and I can only speculate here, I'm not intimately familiar with the situation, is in not immediately releasing the tanker. Sure, they had to board it, but Jeremy Hunt should have gotten onto the phone to the Iranian Foreign Office, which he did, but he should have never got off it until he had assurances that it was not going to Syria. And I don't know exactly what the legal position is, but quite frankly, I'd have taken a long-range pinky promise on that and released it as soon as I could, within the same day, ideally. With that tanker remaining seized, Iran were always going to be capturing some of ours, and as they've shown, they're not above doing so in international waters or even the territorial waters of other nations. This is where I think the UK has made a huge error. That is just my opinion, I can't be certain. And it's also ridiculous as well, because at the same time as all this is happening, at the same time as we are being dragged into this escalating nightmare, the UK government is pushing very hard along with the other EU nations to rescue that nuclear deal, to reduce those sanctions on Iran. We have made it very clear that we do not believe that Iran defaulted on its obligations. We've backed Iran on this. And then we end up in this sorry state of affairs. It's a nightmare. And then we come to a quite remarkable sequence of events. So first of all, I heard that the US had offered assistance to us to protect our ships in the Gulf and that we declined. I think that was to do with some form of alliance, which we were worried about, that was really an alliance as a prelude to war. So we went, not sure. But of course, you know, the US has not really offered us help in this regard. In fact, Mike Pompeo, a member of Trump's administration, has said that the UK must look after its own ships. Well, I'll tell you what, if we manage to extricate ourselves from this increasingly embarrassing situation, we had best mirror those exact words when the US come calling for us to join them in a battle once more that the rest of the world disapproves of. But without a major shake-up in our government, we won't, will we? So now we're humiliating ourselves by asking for EU assistance. Why humiliating? After all, it's not humiliating to seek help from friends and allies. Well, it's because Britain in modern times has tried to present itself as a bridge between the US and Europe. But the current US administration has sought to align his country away from Europe. The UK at the same time also sought to break ties with Europe, or at least that's the way Brexit path has gone. Now, when faced with a choice, we ran after the US and away from Europe. The past few years has seen us cozying up to the monster in the White House and becoming increasingly hardline against cooperation with the EU, who would make much better allies and more genuine friends at the moment. So the US has abandoned us, the US administration that is, of course, and we've now got to go cap in hand to the EU to ask for help. Seriously, just to crowbar Brexit back into this, what is all this guff about? Believe in Britain, you must believe in Britain. We can't even protect our own ships in the Gulf. An island nation with a proud naval history cannot even protect crucial oil supplies from privateers, because that's exactly what the Revolutionary Guard are when they're outside Iranian waters. If yet again, it just exposes just how weak we are on our own. Serious, this absolute rubbish about Britain can make it on its own. We can't make it on our own. That's nonsense. It's shown to be nonsense. We've even shown that we can't even form alliances to help us out when in need. We're like someone who keeps moving from abusive partner to abusive partner because we haven't the faintest idea how to judge someone's character. Not that our own character is anything to be proud of right now. So although I feel we've been dragged into this Iranian escalation, I can't blame them for that. Our decision making has been absolutely turning what would be a drama into a crisis, and which is very likely to become a catastrophe unless someone with a brain starts to take charge. The prospects of this are slim at the moment. There is no face-saving way for the UK to get out of this, so we just need to cut our losses and frankly get on board again with stable allies and leave the conflict between the US and Iran alone to resolve. They're the ones who want this. As much as I deplore the behaviour of the UK ministers, I genuinely believe they do not want conflict in the Middle East at all. You just don't see the same inflammatory rhetoric coming out of the UK that we are doing from certain sections of the US and Iran. So those are my thoughts on this increasingly complex and frankly embarrassing episode in this period of UK history that is absolutely going to have whole books dedicated to it in the future. Hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click on the Patreon link to find out details. And until next time, I'll see you later.